This garden was a swamp, thick with Melaleuca ericofolia, swamp paperbark, busy with ducks and geese, and encircled by the Yarra River, platypus home, which was forced to straighten. Entering from the south, we find high, dry ground. First observation, a new species. The tail and covert and breast feathers standard little wattlebird, as is the harsh call, in fact the total jizz except for its forehead. I'm calling it the pollen-headed wattlebird, Anthocera pollencapitae, closely related to Anthocera chrysoptera. Gary Vogler has recently described 3 new species of forest robins. Each, he says, represents a distinct lineage based on our genetic analysis. The 3 are further distinguished by appearances such as wing and tail length and subtle differences in their plumage. One species has a distinctive song as well. Plants in professional gardens are managed for peak health, speaking ornamentally from the garish to the shy. But birds of paradise, Strelitzia reginae, is a striking South African import, way past its best. Fungi are not planted, but smoothly finished as if sanded with the grain. Underestimated, being mostly underground, they are vital for the health of forests and woodland. More animal than plant, they relax with no need for nervous system to enable fight or flight. Together with bacteria, parasites, and the whole vast microscopic biomass, they resist our scale of the aesthetic. The luxuriant growth on Guilfoyle's volcano, built as a reservoir for the garden, need hardly any water or lava, handy, as both are rare on much of this continent. The city backdrop, all that is solid melts into air, is proof we are modern, proof the grassy woodland community that once thrived here with kangaroo and wallaby grass among acacias, eucalypts and callistemons has gone, and only 1% survives in this state. My camera jams, just as I try to snatch a train of Chinese tourists hamming it up for someone else's camera, posing for a recollection, just happy to be here. But here is speculative when you consider anywhere contains multitudes and the now segues past the future. Bell miners, bellbirds, are chiming an Australian forest keynote. Henry Kendall was the first poet with the ambition to be known as a native Australian poet. The last 2 lines of his most famous poem, Bellbirds, a poem school children once recited in class, use the conceit that memory of nature can sustain him in a city, a theme Wordsworth and Banjo Paterson also mined. Charming to slumber the pain of my losses, with glimpses of creeks and a vision of mosses. Poetry is not sufficient. You need ongoing intercourse with natural lives. Science has marked them as dangerous. They feed on insects, but specialize on farming lerps, sugary secretions used as protective shelters by sap-sucking psyllids that look like miniature cicadas. The birds scrape the lerps off leaves, usually without harming the psyllids. Their aggression keeps other birds out, so the psyllids can multiply until they weaken or sometimes kill the tree. How to be here? Pause here and reflect on the danger of science, art, distractions, think presence and present past and the weight of history too easily pocketed. Pause here. Reflect on this country, where generations of Kulin people have gathered. Wominjeka. Wominjeka means welcome in the indigenous language Boon Wurrung. Jane Edmondson on the telly says, "I'm really excited to have found this lovely site in the Botanic Gardens called Long Island, with this amazing range of birdlife and fantastic biodiversity of plants. It's a lovely place to bring a book and maybe a cup of tea and relax because you're amongst vegetation that is exactly the same as it was prior to European settlement. This is England. You can go punting, pushed around by young men in waistcoats and straw hats with the wrong accents. Where are the tiger snakes, the red-bellied blacks? A sleek wall of figs gives no way through, where their smooth skin, the colour of elephant hide, is touching. A cactus heart writing with plants a biography of infatuation that could lead to love, children, or unknown boredom, listlessness, disgust. Cactus control is taking us back to leg irons and chains. There were plenty of convicts here, though none were directly transported to Port Phillip. They were assigned to the early surveyors, provided labour, even helped the police magistrate. Warning! The service bloom looks solid, but is a trap for the impulsive and unwary. You can also prick your finger on cactus spines for a blood oath or by accident, be bitten by a spider while plucking a flower, discreetly, and only one when one of many. Tomorrow is even more dangerous. Riches. In bloom, silky oak, the largest grevillea, fronted by a smoke bush. Each so particular, and so belonging somewhere else, you might think. A Murray River turtle, basking in shadow, is as dark as the mud. Bush tucker here on Long Island, almost missed. Women waded through the murky waters, feeling for their smooth, hard shell. Cooked them upside down on hot coals. The oily meat tastes like chicken. In Walden, Thoreau suggested, let us settle ourselves and work and wedge our feet downward through the mud and slush of opinion, through poetry and philosophy and religion, till we come to a hard bottom and rocking place, which we can call reality. He concluded, there is a solid bottom everywhere. New and old, temporary and permanent. It's the season for civic displays, promises of pleasure or even happiness, the temporary effects of drunkenness too. A river red gum. Professor Entwistle says he hopes the native trees would survive, but was particularly concerned about the separation tree because it was fragile after being similarly damaged in 2010. He said the river red gum, which marks where Victorian citizens gathered on the 15th of November 1850 to celebrate the separation of the state from New South Wales, is one of the most significant and beloved trees in the gardens. It's an outrageous act. When somebody does this to such a distinguished tree, it's very hard to understand and very hard to forgive. 3 years later, and this original tree from the banks of the Yarra looks as dead as a dodo. Coots on the nest are gathering green bricks. They can't sing. Duckweed and moorhens. Turdus merula, my favourite pest, a songster superior to song thrush and nightingale in my opinion, and feral despite its passerine ancestry. When defending territory, male blackbirds respond more aggressively to rivals with orange bills, like this one. Songbirds are a huge diverse group of small perching birds that make up almost half of the world's bird species. They evolved from a common ancestor that emerged from what is now Australia around 24 million years ago, when the Australian landmass was surrounded by a vast open ocean in all directions. Cottonflower. As if to insist beauty can get into a tangle, Wynne has a colourful breakfast of nature. The eel trap sign whispers of energy inputs in the past wrapped into a culture inescapably natural. The sign. She's too quiet. We all have to speak for her. Torn butterfly wing. We can manage our deficits. I remember reading Oliver Sacks. Neurologists' favourite word is deficit, denoting an impairment or incapacity of neurological function, loss of speech, loss of language, loss of memory, loss of vision, loss of dexterity, loss of identity, and myriad other lacks and losses of specific functions or faculties. On Sign Me Biodiversity, language often fails us. The text trying to get words past the photographs, the battle of ekphrasis, the hope that writing can bring an image vividly to mind, and the worry that writing cannot compete with the visual, the hope and distrust that text and image can work together as a unity. A trunk, almost black and white, is the history we're given and have abandoned, keeping possums and gliders at bay. The ponds support islands of vegetation that are said to float. I thought I saw an island move, set my camera to movie and recorded, but the breeze stopped. I wasn't sure if I had imagined it. A river's self-portrait with ducks and reinforced walls, an island surrounded. The river is proximate, frantic with rowers, the towpath busy with coaches cycling along, shouting through megaphones. The Yarra is disciplined, but senses chthonic echoes from geology, geomorphology, and native hydrology. The evolution of the Botanic Garden. Well, let's see. Medical training? To collections for collection's sake? To economic hubs of imperial ambition? To pleasure gardens? Then to conservation repositories? And now, I guess, the well-being of all, of everyone.